For years, he told his supporters he was untouchable, that no court, no judge, no legal system in the world could bring him down. And for a long time, it actually looked like he was right. Criminal indictments came and went, impeachments failed, investigations dragged on and dissolved into nothing. Every single time the walls seemed to be closing in, Donald Trump found a way out. He repackaged every setback as persecution, turned every courtroom loss into a fundraising email, and walked away stronger every single time. But on April Fool's Day 2026, something happened that was different. Not louder, not more dramatic, actually quieter than most people expected. A federal judge in Washington sat down and spent 112 pages doing something no one had fully managed to do before. He didn't just reject Trump's arguments, he dismantled them. One by one, methodically, completely. And when it was over, the legal shield Trump had been hiding behind for years was gone. Not cracked, gone. The judge's name is Amit Mehta, and what he ruled that day didn't just affect one lawsuit. It opened a door that Trump has spent years trying to keep locked. A door that leads straight to discovery, depositions, and a courtroom full of people whose lives were permanently changed on January 6th. And this time, there is no immunity waiting on the other side. And that's when everything began to shift. To understand why this ruling hit differently, you have to go back to where this all started. January 6th, 2021. A day that most Americans remember exactly where they were when they watched it unfold. The United States Capitol, one of the most secured buildings in the country, was overrun. Windows shattered, doors were forced open, officers were beaten with flagpoles, sprayed with chemicals, crushed against door frames. And in the middle of all of that chaos, men and women who had shown up that morning just to do their jobs were being permanently injured. Some lost feeling in their hands. Some suffered concussions that never fully healed. One officer, Brian Sicknick, collapsed after the attack and never recovered. His partner is still fighting for answers. These were not political figures. These were not people who chose to be part of any controversy. They were law enforcement officers doing their duty on what turned into one of the most violent days in modern American political history. And for years after that day, the people who were hurt, the officers, the families, the members of Congress who had to hide under their seats while the mob moved through the building, they tried to hold someone accountable through the courts. Lawsuit after lawsuit was filed. And lawsuit after lawsuit hit the same wall. Presidential immunity. The argument that whatever a sitting president does while in office is protected, shielded, untouchable by civil courts. Trump's legal team leaned on that argument hard. They used it to delay, to dismiss, to run out the clock. And it worked for a long time. Cases stalled, rulings got appealed. The whole process moved at a pace so slow, it started to feel like nothing would ever actually happen. But Judge Amit Mehta looked at that immunity argument and reached a conclusion that changed everything. He said Trump was not acting as a president on January 6th. He was acting as a candidate. A losing candidate who refused to accept the result of a free and fair election and used every tool available to him to hold on to power he had already lost. That distinction, candidate versus president, sounds simple, but legally, it is the difference between being shielded forever and being exposed completely. And once that shield came down, everything underneath it became visible. The phone calls, the pressure campaigns, the coordinated effort to block the peaceful transfer of power. All of it now sitting in the open, waiting for the next phase to begin. And what that next phase looks like is something that should make everyone pay close attention, because what comes with it has the potential to reveal more about those final days before January 6th than anything the public has seen before. Now, let's talk about what civil discovery actually means, because most people hear that word and move on without realizing how serious it really is. Discovery in a civil case is not a press conference. It is not a congressional hearing where someone can dodge a question and walk out the door. It is a legal process with teeth. Real teeth. And what it unlocks in a case like this is something Trump has never had to face before in any of his legal battles. Subpoenas go out for private communications. Internal records from the White House get pulled. Text messages between aides and advisors that were never meant to see the light of day become part of the official court record. Emails that sat buried in servers for years suddenly have to be handed over. Phone logs from the days immediately surrounding January 6th. Every call made, every call received, Every moment someone picked up a phone and had a conversation about what was happening, all of it becomes fair game. And this is not a process anyone can simply refuse. You do not get to ignore a civil subpoena. You do not get to claim you are too busy or too important. The court compels you. And if you resist, the court has ways of making that resistance very costly. But the subpoenas are only the beginning, because what comes after them is where things get genuinely serious. The depositions. Think about what a deposition actually is. It is not a stage. There is no crowd. There are no cameras rolling for a rally. It is a quiet room, a table, a lawyer sitting directly across from you, and a court reporter writing down every single word you say. And you are under oath. Every answer you give is legally binding. Every claim you make can be checked against documents, against other testimony, against evidence that has already been collected. There is no teleprompter in that room. There are no talking points that can save you. And for Trump specifically, the rules of civil court create a situation that is unlike anything he has navigated before. In criminal court, the Fifth Amendment gives you the right to stay silent without penalty. You can refuse to answer and walk away, and the jury is not supposed to hold it against you. Civil court does not work that way. In a civil case, if you refuse to answer questions, if you plead the Fifth and stay silent, the jury is legally allowed to draw what is called an adverse inference. That means they can look at your silence and conclude that you are hiding something damaging. They are permitted to assume the worst. So Trump walks into that deposition room facing a choice with no good options. Answer the questions and potentially say something that becomes devastating evidence. Or stay silent and hand the jury permission to believe he has everything to hide. And then there are the people around him. This is the part that does not get talked about enough. The aides, the advisors, the inner circle figures who were in the room during those final days before January 6th. The ones who were on those calls, who heard those conversations, who were present when decisions were being made. Some of these people have never had to sit across from a lawyer under oath and answer questions about what they saw and heard. Some of them have information that has never come out in any public hearing, any investigation, or any criminal proceeding. And now, for the first time, they are going to have to, because they are not the president. They do not have the political armor Trump has spent years building around himself. When a lawyer asks them what they knew and when they knew it, they cannot turn it into a rally speech. They cannot repackage it as persecution. They have to answer. And that dynamic has a way of producing things that no one planned for. People under oath in quiet rooms have a long history of saying things that change the public understanding of major events. Now pair that with Trump's actual civil legal record, because this is where history becomes genuinely damning. He has been down this road before, and the results have been devastating every single time. Eugene Carroll took him to civil court twice. 2 separate juries looked at the evidence and found against him. The total damages came to over $88 million. He dismissed it publicly, appealed aggressively, had his team make noise at every stage, and still lost every single time. Before that, Trump University collapsed under fraud allegations and cost him $25 million in settlements. The Trump Foundation was dissolved by court order, and he was ordered to pay back $2 million for misusing charitable funds. His New York business empire was found liable for sustained fraud and hit with a judgment exceeding $350 million. Every single one of those was a civil case. Every single one ended the same way. And now he is walking into a courtroom, not against an individual plaintiff, but against a room full of injured police officers with documented medical records, documented injuries, and documented evidence of exactly what happened to them and when. Legal analysts who have followed his civil record closely are already pointing out that the potential damages in this case could make the Carroll verdicts look small. And then something else happened that most people missed entirely. Right after Judge Mehta's ruling came down, there was a window of time when Trump's legal team could have filed an emergency appeal directly to the Supreme Court. That window opened, and it quietly closed, without his team filing anything. Think about that for a moment. The legal team that has filed appeals at every turn, that has fought every ruling, that has made noise at every single stage of every single case, looked at the Supreme Court option and decided not to take it. That is not the behavior of a side that believes it has strong arguments. That is the behavior of lawyers who looked at their options, ran the numbers, and concluded the odds were too bad to risk another public rejection. And that decision, that silence, said more than any press release his team put out afterward. Because here is what makes the Supreme Court path so complicated for Trump specifically. The court's existing immunity framework was built around criminal cases tied to core official duties. What Mehta ruled on is civil liability for conduct that was never presidential in the first place. Getting the Supreme Court to intervene would require constructing an entirely different legal argument from the ground up. And apparently, even Trump's own attorneys, after reviewing everything, could not build one worth filing. So, the discovery moves forward. The depositions get scheduled, the documents start flowing, and the people who were inside that circle during those final chaotic days before January 6th are about to sit across from lawyers in quiet rooms and answer questions they have never had to answer before. There is no pardon at the end of this road. There is no loyalist attorney general who can make the case quietly disappear. There is no election result that renders the whole thing moot. Civil court exists in its own universe, and presidential power has absolutely no currency there. And just when it seemed like Trump had seen every legal threat and survived every single one of them, the one courtroom where none of his usual tools work was finally open for business and fully moving forward. But what happened next? What was actually waiting inside that courtroom and what it meant for everyone involved was something that even the people watching closely did not fully see coming. The courtroom that was waiting was not filled with political opponents. It was not packed with partisan figures looking for a moment in the spotlight. The people bringing these cases were Capitol Police officers. Men and women who had put on their uniforms that morning believing it was going to be a difficult but manageable day. Instead, they walked into something that changed them permanently. One officer was overpowered, beaten, and left with a serious concussion and broken bones that took months to even begin healing. Another was hit directly with bear spray at close range and sustained hand injuries that never fully recovered. These were not abstract legal claims written on paper by lawyers in expensive offices. These were real bodies, real damage, real lives altered in ways that no amount of time has been able to reverse. And now, those officers were going to sit in a courtroom and tell a jury exactly what happened to them, exactly what they lost. And the man whose words set that day in motion was going to have to sit there and face them. There is a reason this moment carries a different kind of weight than anything that came before it. Criminal cases deal in legal abstractions. Charges, statutes, elements of offenses that need to be proven beyond a reasonable doubt. They are built for lawyers and judges and legal scholars to argue over. But a civil trial in front of a jury works differently. A jury does not need to navigate complex legal frameworks. A jury listens to a police officer describe losing permanent feeling in his hand, and then looks across the room at the person being held responsible. That is not abstract. That is human. And human moments have a way of cutting through every political narrative, every media strategy, every carefully crafted statement a communications team can produce. Think about what that imagery actually looks like inside that courtroom. Not on a screen, not filtered through a political debate, just a person in a witness chair describing the worst day of their professional life, and a jury of everyday Americans listening to every single word. No spin survives that room. No repackaging works in that environment. And then there is the family of Brian Sicknick. His partner has been pursuing a wrongful death claim that now moves fully forward. That case is not about legal technicalities. It is about a man who went to work one morning and never came home the same. And the people who loved him want answers that no one has been forced to provide under oath, until now. Judge Mehta's 112 pages did not just open a courtroom, they opened a reckoning. And what makes it so significant is that Trump has no playbook for this version of accountability. Every other legal battle he has fought, he has been able to frame as an attack on him personally, as a political hit job, as the deep state coming after a man the establishment was afraid of. His supporters absorbed that framing and came back stronger every time. But it is genuinely difficult to look at a police officer with permanent nerve damage and tell the public that his lawsuit is a political conspiracy. It is difficult to frame a widow seeking answers as part of an establishment takedown. These are not characters in a political drama. They are people. Real, specific, documented people. And a jury is going to hear their stories in full. The weight of that reality was already visible in how Trump's team responded to this ruling compared to every other legal setback. The noise was there, the statements were issued, but underneath it all, something was quieter than usual. And that quiet said everything. Because even the people managing his legal strategy understood that this particular fight, in this particular courtroom, with these particular plaintiffs was unlike anything they had prepared for. And even after that moment, even after all of it, the consequences were far from over. The consequences were playing out in a way that went far beyond one courtroom, far beyond one ruling, and far beyond one man's legal troubles. What Judge Mehta had set in motion was something that operates on its own timeline, completely indifferent to election cycles, political wins, and the daily noise of the news cycle. Civil litigation does not pause for rallies. It does not stop because someone wins an election. It does not disappear because a loyal ally gets appointed to a powerful position. It just keeps moving. And every step it takes forward generates something that no political team can fully control. Documents. Every document that comes out through discovery becomes a news cycle on its own. Every piece of internal communication that surfaces, every email, every text message, every phone log that gets pulled into evidence, tells a piece of the story that has never been fully told in public before. And unlike leaks or rumors or anonymous sources, these are court records. They are official, they are verified, and they are permanent. Then come the depositions, and those depositions become headlines. People who were in those rooms, who were on those calls, who watched those decisions being made in real time and never had to answer for what they witnessed, are now going to sit across from lawyers and answer questions under oath. And history has shown, time and again, that quiet rooms with court reporters have a way of producing the kind of truth that no press conference ever could. What we may be watching unfold is not the loudest chapter of this story. It is not the most dramatic headline or the most explosive moment. It is something quieter, slower, and in many ways more powerful than anything that came before it. A former president being made to sit still, to answer questions, to face the people his actions hurt, in a room where his title carries no weight, and the only thing that matters is the truth. For a man who has spent his entire life in motion, always moving, always fighting, always finding another door to walk through, civil court may turn out to be the one place he simply cannot outrun. And for the officers who were beaten that day, for the families still carrying the weight of what happened, for the country that watched it all unfold and has been waiting for something real ever since, this ruling is not a finish line. It is the starting gun. The story is not over. It is just finally, after all this time, moving through a system that does not bend for power, does not pause for politics, and does not forget. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Do you believe these civil cases will finally deliver the accountability that criminal courts never managed to? Or does Trump find a way through this one too? Drop your thoughts, hit that like button if this story gave you something to think about, and subscribe so you don't miss a single update as this continues to develop. This one is far from finished.